One of my uncles races Gravedigger, the other one races Son of a Digger.
Gravedigger? Hey YouTube, this is Allie from Awareness Racing. I'm here today with Jackson, his sister Sawyer, and his parents Jared and Katie. My dad saw Jackson on Facebook and reached out to Mr. Jarrett, and long story short, here we are. Jackson is the driver of a truck named Aggravator. We're going to ask him and his family some questions today. So Jackson, how old are you?
I am 11 years old.
And how long have you been racing?
Probably a little under a year, I would say.
Wow, that's really cool. What series do you race in?
I race in the Southeastern DOT series. I do race Kings of Super Street, right? I race Kings of Super Street, and that is it.
Cool. Are you interested in racing in any other series in the future?
Not really. I like this series. I'll probably find other series over time, but as of right now, I like doing Southeastern DOT and Kings of Super Street.
What trucks does your family race?
My cousin races Bog Hog and King Sling. One of my uncles races Gravedigger, the other one races Son of a Digger.
Gravedigger? That's cool. That's really cool. When did you first know that you wanted to get into racing?
Well, I've been racing Power Wheels at my great uncle's mud bog since I was about 2, right? I wanted to get into racing as soon as my cousin started driving the original Bog Hog, probably, which was around when I was like 4 or 5, something like that.
Wow, so you started really young. Do you ever have like people like coming up to you and like kids thinking it's really cool that you're driving as an 11-year-old?
A couple of times, yeah.
Is it like really fun? Does it feel like you're famous or something?
Yeah. Sometimes, well, it depends on like what kind of mood I'm in, but most of the time, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice. What do you like about racing?
My favorite part is like when you're going really fast up to a jump, and then you kind of like overshoot the jump, and then like kind of like land perfectly. Like you land perfectly smooth, and when you thought you overshot the jump. I like how that feels, because you're like, oh god, I overshot the jump, and then you land perfectly, and I'm like, oh, I didn't overshot the jump.
The adrenaline rush. What are you looking forward to the most of this season?
I'm looking forward to going to Twitty's Mud Bog, because last year I couldn't go, but because I had literally just started, so I hadn't really proved that I was a good driver yet. So people on my race team of Kings of Super Street went to Twitty's, and I went to my uncle's mud bog that day, but this year I'm going to Twitty's, and I'm really excited for that.
So, how did the Aggravator truck get its name?
When we originally named the truck Aggravator, it was kind of twofold. One, it was because he was aggravating me to get a truck, and 2, there's not a whole lot of places where kids have their own class, so a lot of times he's racing against adults. And when he races against adults, it's pretty aggravating for the adults to get beaten by an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned already some of the modifications you've done to the truck, but what are some others?
I think pretty soon here we're going to take a couple of parts off the motor that we don't need anymore, like the air conditioning unit or whatever it's called, and a couple other things that I can't think of the name right now, and that'll get us like 10 to 20 more horsepower out of it, and it'll put more torque power to the wheels so that it's not going to those other things in the motor. That way I can launch better and have more torque for the motor and stuff.
That's cool and very impressive that you know all of that. So I hear you've had some excitement in the last month. You rolled your truck in Branchville, South Carolina. Were you hurt? Were you scared?
No, so that was when I was waving to my mom. I was just like waving to her, and then I slipped off the side and then was stuck on my side. and I thought it was like a roller coaster and then I was like, the only scary part for me was unbuckling my seatbelt, because I thought when I unbuckled it, I was gonna fall straight into the mud. But I kind of like braced myself so that I would unbuckle it and then kind of hang down so I can just drop straight down into the mud and then kind of get out of my truck. So that was really the only scary part to me.
I also heard you got your first win the following weekend in Newport, North Carolina. Tell me about that.
Yep, I was in the kids class, and me and like a couple other of my friends were in the kids class, and so the pit, we were like one of the first classes to go instead of last like usual. So the pit was super sloppy. So I was so I was kind of scared about that, because I don't like getting stuck, and I don't like going super slow. So what I did was I just launched and then held it to the floor and didn't lift, and I followed the ruts almost perfectly, and I got the fastest time my first run, and then my second run I was a little bit slower because one of my friends that was before me, she tried making a new rut but then kind of hit a hole, so she kind of swerved to the other side of the pit. So I had to kind of knock through some ruts a little bit, so I went a little bit slower.
What did it feel like to win?
I was really excited, but it was also kind of really funny because there was this little kid there that was like, "Can I have your trophy? Can I have your money?" And I'm like, I think I'm good. So it was kind of funny for me, but also really exciting.
So, Mr. Jarrett, Miss Katie, what did you first think when your son wanted to get into racing?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, like, we've kind of always known anything with a motor lights him up, and it makes him, smile from ear to ear ever since he was little bitty. So, from the time he was in Power Wheels to, four-wheelers and dirt bikes and every other thing, he's just always been about anything that had the motor. And as he got older, watching his uncles race and compete in Monster Jam and mud bogs and mega truck races, he was always just, that's going to be me someday. I'm going to do that someday. And, as things progressed and we went in more and more races, I would always tell him, yeah, as soon as you're, 16 or as soon as you're old enough to drive a truck, we'll get you one and we'll work on it and we'll get you racing.
And let's also backtrack to when Jackson was driving Power Wheels. My dear sweet husband souped it up with like 2 drill batteries. So this has been in the making. So my mama heart was obviously nervous because it's my boy, but I'm excited for him and he's having a lot of fun.
What were the steps you took to getting the truck and getting, on the track and racing?
I guess the first step was obviously the conversation with Dennis. We were at an event, and his friend Jesse, who's only 14, 15 at the time, had just started racing tough trucks, and Jackson's, Jesse's not 16 and he doesn't have to have a license to go race and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, well, when you get a little older, we'll get something for you. And then Dennis comes by and says, yeah, Dad, go build him a truck so he can come race. And from that moment on, it's like, once we got the permission from Dennis to have a place to go and have a place to compete, that was kind of, that's where it started. So from there, Jackson started aggravating me every day. When are we going to give you a truck? When are we going to give you a truck? And I just started searching classifieds and, talking to everybody else that was racing to see kind of what's the best kind of truck to start off with and what's the one that's going to be the most reliable and not break down the most. And it seems like a lot of people get started with Jeep Cherokees, especially like in the tough truck classes and jumping. You don't have to do a whole lot of modifications to them to get them, to where you can actually compete. And we were looking and we actually found this one. This one was actually raced at that event. It was a lot more stock than it is now. But the guy had put it up for sale for $600 and it had a few issues with it, but we went ahead and bought it and then, started working on it. Started working on the suspension, started working on, it had some coolant issues, so we put a new radiator in it. Jackson got installed that about 4 times until we got it where it wouldn't leak. And then bigger tires, better tires, and just kept moving up from there.
So what are some of the challenges you would say of Jackson being type 1 diabetic and, traveling and racing?
Biggest one, obviously making sure his blood sugar is not too low or too high when he's behind the wheel, and making sure it's kind of maintained so he doesn't go low when he's in the truck. When he did have that roll when we were in Branchville, it was a little bit nerve-wracking because his pack that he wears that holds his devices was strapped to the truck and it was on its side and he was out. So, I'm obviously stressing making sure we get those out and that they're safe and okay. So, it's really just having good friend support when we're at races and things who can kind of help just make sure we're monitoring that and he's in a good spot.
If a parent that is thinking about getting their kids into motorsports is watching now, what would you tell them?
Don't be afraid. Is the best advice I can say is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the expense. Don't be afraid of whatever. I mean, there's always a way around it, and obviously when it comes to motorsports, a lot of parents and a lot of families think, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. But you'd be surprised at how many people that that want to support you and your kids. And I mean, from the little local mechanic down the street that works on your car, and they'll donate their time and some materials to help you get something going for your kids, to other friends that have businesses that won't mind helping you pay gas money and entry fees to get someplace to go race. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to help.
Just even the other drivers too. I think the racing community in the short time that we've been in part of it has been really awesome. We've made some good friends so far, and drivers, when Jackson's truck broke down before his second run, that, hey, here, use my truck, right? That really are there to support the kids and help them live through their goals, and it's been really phenomenal.
And at Branchville, when I rolled, I leaked a lot of transmission fluid, and I had really none left in there. So we asked one of our racing friends if he had any, and he did, and he let us use it, and we were back and up and running for the next class that I was in. So,
is there anything else you would like to say to anyone watching?
Don't be discouraged. Follow your dreams. Just don't let anyone tell you that you can't. You're never gonna be a good driver, and you're never gonna be successful. Always follow your dreams, and eventually it'll pay off.
Well, thank you for joining us today and sharing Jackson's story. The reason my dad started this channel was to show kids that they can race too. My dad loves to race, but he wasn't exposed to it at a young age, and he always wondered what would have happened if he would have started it as a kid. So we hope to inspire kids and follow their dreams, and y'all are certainly inspiring. So thank you for coming here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great being here.